Hello and welcome to Healing Begins Here, brought to you by the Victim Service Center of Central Florida. I'm Olivia Oropeza, the VSC's Prevention Education Manager, and I'm really glad you're joining us today. Before we begin, I want to offer a quick content warning. Today's conversation includes topics related to violence, abuse, and trauma. Please take care of yourself while watching. If at any point you need support, you are not alone. The Victim Service Center is here for you, and we provide free, confidential, and compassionate services to anyone impacted by sexual assault, violence, or other traumatic experiences. We do this regardless of gender, age, or identity. Our 24/7 helpline is 407-500-HEAL or 407-500-4325. In this episode, we're turning our attention to an often overlooked part of the prevention conversation, how we engage and support young men and boys in building a future free from violence. Research shows that boys who lack strong role models or mental health support are more likely to internalize harmful messages about masculinity and can lead to more emotional repression, isolation, and in some cases, violence. But programs that center mentorship, emotional literacy, and mental health can disrupt that cycle and build a healthier path forward. Today we'll be hearing from some of the leaders in our community who have taken on this mission and are making positive strides for young boys and men every day in the work that we do. In our first segment, we're joined by Dr. Trenton Marsh, Associate Professor of Urban Education at the University of Central Florida, and the founder of Hope Circle, a youth-driven youth initiative in historic Paramore neighborhood that gives boys of color a safe space to explore mental health, identity, and leadership. Dr. Marsh, thank you so much for being here today.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
So to begin, could you please share with us your perspective on what young boys and men are facing today when it comes to masculinity, identity, and emotional well-being?
Sure. I think there's a kind of a preconceived notion of what masculinity should be, what leadership could be for them, and even what their identities are. I think oftentimes these preconceived notions have been enamored through social media, potentially things that they've experienced in the context of their home, the context of their blocks, right, wherever they're coming from. And oftentimes it's sort of rigid, it's narrow, it's already predefined. Right. And so when I think about what young men are sort of faced with now, it's typically these things that are stereotypical. So black boys particularly, right, they don't like school, they like girls all the time, they don't like, it's all about pride, it's all about the swag, it's about the sneakers, all of these sort of, again, just stereotypical things.
Right.
And what we try to do at Hope Circle is allow the young people, number one, to define who they want to be and who they are currently. And we do that in the context of identity, in the context of masculinity, in the context of, defining oneself.
Right. So it sounds like there are some stereotypes they run up against, and to break out of those, Hope Circle is working with them to sit back and self-reflect and say, regardless of these stereotypes, this is who I am, and this is maybe who I want to be in the future.
There's no doubt. I mean, I think there's something called mirroring, right? They can mirror what they see.
Yeah.
They can also model what they see. So it's easy to mirror. Right, because you just see it something, right? Someone's doing something, and you're just going to do it. But when you model it, and in the adults, in the context of a Hope Circle, we model behavior, right? We model vocabulary. We model respect. We model vulnerability. Right? We model things that we want them to walk away with as a young person in the context of their communities.
Right, so having those models in their life that they can look up towards and say, that's a behavior that I want to have for myself, and this is how I can get there. And that's a vital resource that maybe some young boys and men don't have the opportunity within their own circle, or maybe their family or school. So Hope Circle is a place where they can maybe go and get some of that modeling.
Yeah. So it all started to be transferred. So it's a Genesis story. In 2022, Genesis story all the way. 2019, I get to the University of Central Florida. I have a colleague who's doing some data collection at one of the Boys and Girls Clubs in the Paramore area. We did a wonderful curriculum around teamwork, conflict resolution, emotional safety, physical safety. These are actually social emotional learning aspects that the young people, specifically 9 to 12-year-olds, were struggling in.
Right. Then
the pandemic hits, and so we had to pull out. But in the middle of the pandemic, the director reached out to me and she says, hey, one of our young men was killed over the weekend. And at this point, we were able to get back into the context.
Right.
And so she said, can you just come to the clubhouse? Can you just come and just listen to our young men? And so literally we came, myself and two of my doc students, we came to the clubhouse, just listened.
Yeah.
Like, how were they coping? How were they thriving? How were they dealing with the passing of one of these young men, one of their colleagues? And
Right.
a young man pulled me to the side, literally pulled me to the side, and he whispered in my ear. He says, "Dr. T, there's hope here." He whispered that to me in my ear. I started thinking, what is this? I know what hope means, so I'm a man of faith. I know what hope means as it relates to my biblical context. I know what hope means as sort of an adjective. I reached out to my doc students at the time, clinically trained social workers, and they were with me in that session. I said, what is hope? What does this mean? Like, what does it mean
Right.
about hope? And so all of those sessions, we came up with Healing Oasis for Peace and Empowerment. So that's what Hope Circle stands for. So they're not just coming to us for this idea of who they want to be and how they want to become.
Right.
Literally, we are amplifying their voice.
Yeah.
Like, what issues and challenges are you struggling with in your school, on your block, in your community, Central Florida, and how can we help amplify that? What data can we collect? What policies can we inform? That's really what it's about. It's about policy amplification through the lens and the voices of young people.
So you're giving these young boys and men a space, one, to be heard and
Correct.
maybe validated in
Absolutely.
what they're experiencing, which takes time and effort, and a lot of young boys and men may not get that chance and opportunity.
Right.
And on top of that, then you're saying, okay, well, what do you need? And then projecting that up to people in places who can do something about it, right?
One thing that we try to avoid is adultism. Definitionally speaking, adults think they're better than babies.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I think you mentioned this idea of it takes time. Building rapport, building relationships with anybody, particularly kids,
Oh, yeah.
young people, 18 and under, 21 and under, that takes a lot of effort. And so we model vulnerability.
Right.
Most adults don't even model vulnerability with other adults.
For
Right,
sure.
so these are things that we're trying to inform these young people. Like this is human. This is humane. This is humanity. To be compassionate for yourself and others. To be critically conscious. That's
Yeah.
something they don't hear in schools, unfortunately.
Right.
So in the third space, we operate in third spaces, out of school context.
Yeah.
And so we can kind of share with them some things around character, around policies, around politics, around identity.
Right.
That they might not be able to get, to your point, in their house or in their classroom.
Right. And so being able to provide this space for Hope Circle where they get to learn about vulnerability and compassion, self-reflection, critical thinking, something, one, a lot of kids don't get, but it helps with those stereotypes that you mentioned,
Correct.
right? You can be more than that stereotype. You can be who you are. There's hope for you in that space.
Certainly.
So I want to end today by asking you, when you think about the future of Hope Circle, of young men and boys in Central Florida, or in general, what do you envision for the next generation?
To be honest, I think that the most important thing right now is a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
People ask often, like, why are young people not coming to school? We see it now, it's exacerbated post-COVID.
Yeah.
Well, even prior to COVID, absenteeism was a form of a young person to say, this is the only sort of form of resistance that I have. And so if a young person doesn't feel belonged, if they don't feel respected, and that could be on a myriad of things,
Right.
they're not coming to school. So when I think about the future, I'm hopeful that we can create and equip young people with this idea that you do belong,
Yeah.
and it's up for us, the adults, to kind of see your belongingness, right? It's up for the adults to see your full humanity. And so in the context of Hope Circle, what we try to do is, again, we're trying to create a cadre of leaders, young leaders, to say, hey, if someone passes away in your classroom, and this literally has happened,
Right.
someone has passed away in your school, right? And we have adults coming in and telling you what to do. That was the problem. We had young people who are crying in hallways, and adults are coming to them and say, hey, this is not a time for crying.
Right.
But this is how young people are processing, right? So again, think about the future of having adults be in alignment with young people to say, okay, what do you need in this moment? How can I support you in this moment? Not my deficit narratives and what I believe based upon my experience, what I see with my own kids, like what do you need in this particular moment? And I'm hopeful that we have more adults
Yeah.
in partnership. Right, we call it in Hope Circle, we call it youth adult partnership, in partnership with babies, young people,
Yeah.
about what they truly need to be successful, whatever their definition of success is.
So it sounds like learning needs to be kept a two-way street. Adults can gain their value from the young people, and young people can look up towards the positive models that might be for them in their community. Dr. Marsh, thank you so much for the work you do every day with the youth in our community and helping them become successful, healthy adults. And thank you for being here today on our show.
Appreciate you for having me.
Programs like Hope Circle remind us that prevention is not just about stopping harm. It's about building something better and affirming that young boys deserve to be seen, heard, and guided. Up next, we'll continue our conversation on shaping the next generation by hearing from Commissioner Michael Scott, an advocate and mentor who's building systems of support for young boys and young men through civic engagement and mentorship. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healing Begins Here. In our first segment, we explored the value of youth-centered empowerment groups like Hope Circle and the work they're doing to engage young boys and men in creating positive change within their communities. Now we broaden the lens to look at how community leadership can shape safe, supportive pathways for youth, especially for boys and young men. Joining us is Commissioner Mike Scott, Vice Mayor and Orange County District 6 Commissioner, a lifelong Orlando resident, Air Force veteran, and passionate youth mentor. Commissioner Scott brings a wealth of experience and insight to our conversation today. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you have spent a great deal of your time working with youth across Central Florida. Can you tell us a little bit about your overall vision when it comes to supporting youth in Central Florida?
I think it's not necessarily focused on what a kid is or is not doing, but really what they're saying. I've had the benefit of working with youth, in particular youth involved in the criminal justice and juvenile justice system for 21 years. And what I found is a lot of them don't feel heard or seen by adults when it comes to their problems. Oh, this is what you need to do. This is what you should or should not do, as opposed to what do you want to do, and trying to guide them based on how they answer that question.
So it sounds like the, empowering their voices, lifting up their voices, much like we heard from Hope Circle and Dr. Marsh, is a valuable piece of that programming.
100%. Like, you have some 13-year-olds that are managing 40 and 50-year-old problems. Some of them are paying bills, taking care of their kids. And so I think sometimes people discount someone's age as a lack of experience or a lack of exposure when it possibly is the opposite, depending on what they've gone through in their life circumstances.
Right, so you can't just judge someone based off of their age.
No.
You don't know their full story, what they've experienced. What are some of the biggest challenges you see occurring for young boys and men in Central Florida, whether that be stigma, a lack of resources, representation?
I think there's a lack of basic needs, and when I say basic needs, I'm talking about food, safety, shelter, water, right? Just basic needs. And when you look at the lens of what a nonprofit would do or a school would do, it's academics, it's mental health, it's how to wear a tie or how to interview or how to do a resume, but those things don't matter if you don't have the basics met first. And so really understanding what the home environment is like, what's lacking in that environment, and if they even have a home environment. So those basic needs have to be paramount before you have any significant conversation with the youth and where they're going to go with their life.
Right. There are a lot of programs in Central Florida that do focus on, mental health and other good quality programming, but it doesn't matter if they're not safe at home or if they don't have food in their stomachs, right? Those basic needs. In your experience, what are some of the key protective factors that help keep our youth and especially our young boys and men safe and engaged and on the right path?
Well, you said it in the way you asked the question, engaged, keeping them engaged. But keeping them engaged in the way that they want to be engaged. You have one kid that may want to be a streamer, another kid that may want to do sports, another kid that may want to do arts, another kid that may want to trade stocks. Yeah. And so really making sure that you have a good wide range of program offerings, whether you're a school or a nonprofit or a church, so that you are providing what the kid is looking for. We've all at a time or two been young before and been made either by a mom, teacher, or grandma to go sit through something that was miserable. We hated it. We wanted to be anywhere else. And so really asking those probing questions to understand what the kids' interests are and making sure you align them with organizations or individuals that kind of meet that interest.
So it sounds like beyond maybe stereotypes of what people could expect certain young boys or young men to go and do, that we need to remove ourselves from those and listen to what they want. If they want to break out of those boxes or do A through Z?
Yeah, I think so. As the years go by, language changes,
Yeah.
right? And so I learned recently this word called merch. And that's the way of saying it's not true or cap. Like just learning
okay.
their languages. There are so many things that happen kind of in their own little communities, and things that we think aren't important are like life changing for them. And so like you think about a typical issue with a kid where maybe something's posted online. Oh, suck it up. They can just delete it, ignore it. Well, as an adult, maybe we have the emotional maturity and the mental maturity to be able to ignore those things. But for our young people, especially our middle school age kids, it's life changing. My world is ending because they posted something or said something about me.
Right.
And so really making sure that you hear your kids. Folks are so concerned with what their kids are doing or how they say something, tone or tenor, and not really listening to what they're actually trying to say.
Right. It really echoes the message in our previous segment about just listening to the voices of youth. And sometimes it might be difficult to have the time and space. I mean, parents and educators are also, dealing with their own lives, running amok. But it sounds extremely valuable if we're going to invest in the future. It's investing in that time and that energy to listen.
Right.
So you've helped launch a number of supporting organizations and leadership and mentorship programs. What have you seen really resonate with the youth who move through those programs?
So youth like to get involved, actually do things. It's one thing to tell you, it's another thing to show you. It's a whole nother level when you can put them behind maybe a news desk and let them actually conduct an interview, or behind a camera and be able to record a show or make their music. And so what I found works well with the kids, aside from listening, is putting them in position to be in the position they want to be in the future, whatever that is. I mean, exposure is great, conversations are great, but allowing them to what degree they can actually act out, oh, okay, I was a sports trainer for a day, or I got to spend time with the NBA player, or I met with, a doctor and saw how they treated this. Really trying to show them and model what they want to be in the future.
Those experiences for youth are so impactful.
They never forget them.
Right, I know they're really taken with them.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful that you guys are able to help maybe foster some of those connections, and that you've seen that be an effective resource for them.
100%.
How do mentorship programs and leadership programs help reduce the violence in our communities? Not by just offering alternative spaces for youth to hang out and engage, but by helping shape them to be more empathetic and supportive individuals themselves.
So I think, you provide the space, and then you provide, or rather guide the conversation. I'm not going to lead it, but I'm going to drop those nuggets. And so teach kids about hygiene, because some of them may not know how to necessarily prepare themselves for any given day. But one thing I found is even clothes. Oh, you're lame, or your clothes are dirty. And so I have to tell them, I was like, well, who paid for your clothes? Do you know if they're homeless? Do you know, just to be empathetic and asking questions, as opposed to you shouldn't say that about them.
Right.
It's like having a conversation, like, oh, well, who paid for your clothes? Oh, my mom, my grandma, my dad. I was like, what if they don't have a grandma or a dad? Mm-hmm. Are they lame? Are they not cool because they don't have a grandma or a dad that can pay for their clothes or buy the nice J's? It's like you always got to think, when you're making a joke about someone, what if they don't have what you have? And when you start to kind of shift the lens of, hey, I want you to think about this, as opposed to you're wrong and you shouldn't do that, then they start thinking, and then they ask questions. And then they become more relatable, and I think more understanding and compassionate with their peers in their classrooms and in different activities.
So some of those micro interactions just between maybe, mentors or staff and those, young boys help them model and shape kind of behaviors that they want to continue with.
Yeah, I would say it's the quiet moments, it's the pull-asides. Most kids, guys, girls, doesn't matter, aren't going to really engage, the majority of them, in a large group setting. Yeah. But sometimes before, if they've done research on you, or after, they're going to pull you to the side. I had a group of kids, 50 kids, come down to the county administration building earlier this week, and we kind of showed them what careers in government were like. And so, I gave my card to a couple kids that asked, and then, one of the kids texted me, hey, Mr. Mike, this is Alex. And I'm like, Alex who? Because I didn't know. Yeah. It's like, Alex from Career Source. They sent a picture I hadn't seen of me. Someone took a picture or whatever. He's like, I want to ask you about, my football, what you were saying. Because in that conversation, I asked him, I was like, well, what school do you want to go to? He's like, oh, I'm not sure anybody to get you. I was like, no, pick a school, pick 1 or 2 schools, go after your goal. And so I guess that resonated with him to the point where he wanted to engage. But it was that small conversation, just kind of talking about football and what he wants to be. I think next year he'll be a junior. So figuring out his next steps.
You can never underestimate the power of planting that seed.
Yeah.
Well, looking ahead real quickly, what are your hopes for the future of young boys and men in Central Florida?
I think my hopes is that we have an ecosystem for whatever a young man or young lady want to do in the future, and being able to point them to individuals or organizations as resources that they can experience it, whether they're in elementary school, middle school, high school, public or private, just laying the pathways so that if you're looking into finance, you can go somewhere. If you're looking into sports, you can go somewhere, medicine, whatever you have. Because there are paths,
right,
but not every path. So trying to create as many pathways to success for those kids, I think, is important. And I think that's a partnership between, nonprofits like the Victim Service Center, schools, churches. It's not a one organization fits all. It's a partnership. It's a community, like I said, ecosystem.
So building that network to help support the youth. Yeah. Well, Commissioner Scott, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing about all the amazing stuff happening in our community and for all the work that you do.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
We've now learned about the impactful work being done in our communities to help support youth, and especially those young boys and men, in developing into successful, strong, and healthy individuals. In our final segment, we'll delve into the cultural aspects influencing masculinity, particularly within the Latinx community. Stay with us as we continue this important conversation. Welcome back to Healing Begins Here. In this episode, we've been talking about how we can support boys and young men in becoming emotionally healthy, respectful, and empowered adults. We've looked at mentorship and prevention through schools and local government, but we also need to talk about culture and how it shapes the way boys learn and express themselves, seek help, and treat others. Joining us now is Fidel Gomez Jr., a community educator and advocate at Hope Community Center in Apopka, Florida. Fidel works directly with youth and is here to provide some insights on gender norms and machismo. Fidel, thank you so much for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me be a part of this. For me, growing up in the Latino community, it was really important anytime that I have an opportunity to touch on what we're going to be discussing today, to really be able to destigmatize and, talk about what oftentimes we don't talk about.
Right. So. We really appreciate you bringing your perspective and experience and knowledge to this conversation. So I really want to help define machismo first and foremost for our guests listening who may not be familiar with that term. What does machismo mean, and within the context of the Latinx community, what importance does it hold?
Yeah, so I would say machismo is essentially like a framework of mind, right? A lot of times it can look like what we know as like toxic masculinity, right? It could be, being the provider, being the strong one, being the one that doesn't typically show any weakness, right? And growing up kind of, in that framework as well, right? Unfortunately, it wasn't just something that defines me, right? And it unfortunately kind of shaped a lot of the experiences that I had to endure.
Right.
Just because there was so many unspoken things that machismo kind of leaves the door open to, people not talk about their feelings or not really fully understand what that looks like. And so it could be in many forms, but definitely hypermasculinity is kind of the core of it.
So just how does machismo shape the way young boys and men, are engaging with their emotions or needing to get mental health help?
So it can look in many different ways. I would definitely say, like, in a traditional sense, boys are often told, like, don't cry, don't show weakness, don't back down from a fight, or you have to be strong, you can't be weak, right? And I think that it definitely shapes the way that people kind of live, especially as they're getting older, right? Because we sometimes find other ways to cope or find other ways to that it can manifest and fester into something else.
Right. We definitely do recognize that there's a lot of stigma around men within the Latinx community and outside of it to be strong, to not show vulnerability, to not express emotions outside of maybe anger. And that really prevents them from coming forward and getting help when they need it or expressing their needs. So it's interesting to see how it plays out in other cultures as well. And while culture isn't inherently a harmful thing, sometimes these expectations tied to our gender can be extremely limiting. In what ways have you seen young people challenge those limitations imposed by maybe machismo or other types of cultural influences?
I would say that one of the most unique things that I've noticed, especially in the generation of the youth that we have now, is that they're a lot more open to talking about their feelings or that acknowledging when something is not right. You know, a lot of times, I know for myself growing up, I was scared, right? And unfortunately, it kind of caused me to shut down a lot. It didn't allow me the space to know how to address uncomfortable situations.
Right.
Because we had to just keep going, and you know, so.
I'm sure that's a feeling a lot of people can resonate with and understand. For those who might be struggling with that internalized machismo or pressure to be a man in a very rigid way, what would you say to them? How might people begin to let go of expectations and grab onto themselves?
I would say definitely being resourceful with how you express yourself and how you find ways to cope with maybe like not having the most support from your family, right? Or that maybe sometimes there's a lack of accountability from the people that are forcing us to stay in that norm. And so finding ways to cope with that, finding ways to be able to like express themselves, whether it's creatively, whether it's, you know, trying to break whatever that stigma is with their parent, right? If they're able to have, you know, a safe space and an open conversation with them. Because a lot of times it comes generationally, right? And so we're like unpacking that and dealing with that.
We definitely see the generational culture shifts for sure. It's good to hear that the younger folk are feeling more empowered to maybe break out of some of these rigid gender norms, express themselves, call out injustices when they see them. So you work for Hope Community Center. What are some of the programs or opportunities there that could maybe help some youth that are working to find themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hope Community Center has a youth and families program. And typically for the youth programming, they have meetings that happen essentially every single meeting. They kind of have like a different theme, a different topic that they're discussing in a group setting. And a lot of times that helps them to unpack that amongst themselves, right? And then as well, we provide a lot of like opportunities for people to, if they want to volunteer, if they want to learn additional skills, communication, you know, community organizing, things of that nature. So that way they're able to feel more empowered in their identity and in themselves.
Wow, so you guys have resources and groups, and it sounds like a space for community and, you know, personal and professional development as well.
Absolutely.
So if someone wants to get connected with Hope Community Center, find out more, you know, maybe learn a little more about you, how can they connect with you in Hope Community Center?
Yeah, absolutely. So they could visit us at hcc-offm.org. That is our website, and you can also find us on Instagram at HCC Apopka. We do have 2 centers that are located in Apopka, so each one can provide different resources. We have a wide range of resources, so yeah, anybody could definitely stop on in. As well, one of the groups that I help facilitate is called the Cuties, so for queer, trans, and immigrant folks. And we also kind of provide like a support space, but also empowering people to be able to kind of own their story a little bit more.
That's lovely to create that space for people who need it. It's going to be a valuable resource. And Fidel, I want to thank you so much for the work you do in Hope Community Center and being an advocate and sharing all of this with us today.
For sure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Today's conversations remind us that prevention starts with support. When we invest in boys and young men, especially those from diverse backgrounds, we help them grow into leaders who choose empathy and respect and accountability. Masculinity doesn't have to mean silence or toughness. It can mean vulnerability, love, and the courage to care for others. Support the boys and young men in your life. Encourage emotional expression. Challenge limiting ideas, and connect them to mentors and other community resources. You can help redefine what it means to be a man, not by shrinking who they are, but by expanding what's possible. Thank you for watching this episode of Healing Begins Here with the Victim Service Center of Central Florida. If you or someone you know needs support, call our 24/7 helpline at 407-500-HEAL or 407-500-4325. You can also visit victimservicecenter.org for more information. Remember, you are not alone.